Hello, everybody. Welcome to Textile Talks. My name is Lucy Shaken. I am SAQA's communications coordinator, and I am your Textile Talks organizer. And I am just adjusting my screen here. There we go. Today's program is Handwork 2026 Fiber Focus, and I'm joined by Emily Zaiden and Jen Ruppmann from Craft in America. I am zooming to you today from Philadelphia. We'd love it if you'd say hi in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. Textile Talks are presented each week by the International Quilt Museum, Quilt Alliance, Studio Art Quilt Associates, or SAQA, and Surface Design Association. We love bringing you these free programs every week, thanks to the support of our sponsors and contributions from viewers like you. We're heading into our 6th year of Textile Talks, and I have to say I am so proud of the programming we're doing here. We've been coming to you weekly since 2020, and we've shared almost 300 hours together. I personally have learned so much from Textile Talks. Spending this time each week learning from fiber artists, curators, and historians has made me a better artist, and whatever else is going on in the world, I know that each Wednesday afternoon I'll have an hour to share with this global community, doing the important work of documenting and sharing textile stories. I read every single survey comment, and I so love it when people write that a textile talk has left them energized or inspired to get into the studio and to make art. And my favorite ever survey comment was, textile talks not only inspire, but they give me hope that the world is not totally insane, that there are amazing people all over the world. So if Textile Talks has ever helped you in your art, taught you something new, given you a little bit more faith in humanity, inspired you to create, or expanded your horizons somehow, I hope you will consider telling a friend about us, posting about us on social media, and think about supporting our work financially with a donation at saqa.com/ttsupport. Even a donation of $5 or $10 a month makes a huge difference. Thank you to everyone who has donated to Textile Talks and helped keep this program going. I also want to let you know that viewers of Textile Talks get $20 off the first year of a new SAQA membership with code TALKS, that's TALKS. We are a vibrant international creative community for anyone who loves art quilts. You can learn what a SAQA membership has to offer at saqa.com/join. And just some super quick Zoom notes, this is a webinar, so we cannot see or hear you, but we can read your comments in the chat. We have live captions provided by the National Captioning Institute. You can turn these on or off by finding the CC or live captions button, which should be at the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer, or if you're on a mobile device, it's going to be in your settings. Please use the chat for commentary and greetings. We should have some time for Q&A at the end of today's program, so please put your questions in that Q&A box. And if you have suggestions for ways we can improve or for topics you'd like to see in future Textile Talks, please let us know in the post-event survey. So on to today's program, I'm going to introduce our speakers. Jen Ruppmann is the Senior Project Manager of Handwork 2026. Prior to joining Craft in America, she was a longtime editorial executive at PBS. Jen served as the executive in charge for 2 seasons of Craft in America, reigniting her passion for craft art. Welcome, Jen. Emily Zaiden is director and curator of the Craft in America Center in Los Angeles, where she has organized over 80 multidisciplinary contemporary art, craft, and design exhibitions for the center and partner museum venues. Emily oversees public programs, a K-12 education initiative, and digital projects, including the creation of the online craft video dictionary. Her research focuses on craft processes, materiality, functional design, and cultural art, particularly from a historical lens. Emily, welcome. Let's go ahead and get started.
All right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me before I get started and share
Yes.
my screen? Awesome. Okay, let me get to sharing. Bear with me. It's been a little bit since I've shared on Zoom, and it looks like the share button's hidden, so hold on. Let's see, share a portion. Okay, can everybody see my slide?
Yep, that looks great.
Great. Thank you, Lucy. All right. Hello and welcome. I'm Jen Ruppmann, and as Lucy mentioned, I'm the project manager for Handwork 2026 at Craft in America. We are so pleased that you've joined us for a presentation about handwork, celebrating American Craft 2026. Today, we're sharing the details of this ambitious new initiative Throughout the presentation, we welcome your questions in the chat, and we've left plenty of time for questions at the end of the presentation as well. Handwork 2026 is an initiative of Craft in America, the nonprofit founded by Carol Sovian in 2004 to promote and advance original handcrafted work through exhibitions, education, and media. The cornerstone of our efforts at Craft in America is our Peabody Award-winning documentary series that has aired nationwide on PBS since 2007 and the Craft in America Center in Los Angeles. In keeping with our mission and after 4 years of preparation, we've recently launched Handwork 2026 in Philadelphia, the birthplace of our country. So what exactly is Handwork 2026? It's a nationwide year-long initiative marking the country's 250th anniversary through the lens of craft. It unfolds over the course of this next year in venues across the country and on multiple platforms, each designed to highlight the creativity, resilience, and cultural diversity that define the story of craft in the United States. A core tenet of Handwork 2026 is its extraordinary scale of collaboration. More than 250, more than 250 organizations nationwide have joined this initiative, each contributing exhibitions and events that showcase the depth and diversity of American craft. Together, these partners are amplifying the impact of craft, bringing its stories, traditions, and innovations to audiences across the country. More than 130 of our participants will feature fiber art as part of their Handwork 2026 participation, with many of them focusing on quilting. Examples include the Art Cloth Network, the Fitton Center for Creative Arts in Hamilton, Ohio, Museum of Fine Arts Houston in Texas, Uhuru Quilters Guild in District Heights, Maryland, the Boston Modern Quilt Guild in Massachusetts, Project Threadways in Florence, Alabama, the TEXTILE Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the Surface Design Association, who I noticed is a sponsor of these talks, which is awesome. Our website showcases the broad offerings of participants. The site is a one-stop resource for information about our nationwide celebration. It includes pages for participating organizations, an events calendar of our programs and exhibitions, and an interactive craft map showcasing all of the craft resources across the country. On the left, you'll see what our main participating organizations page looks like. On the right is an example of how an individual participating organization's page looks, with a main featured image across the top, a location box complete with a map, and links back to the organization's website and social channels, as well as an organization bio. You can see SAQA's page right in the middle, which also includes related exhibitions and events along the bottom. Some of you might be wondering, what role do quilts play in Handwork 2026? When we talk about quilting within handwork, we're really talking about one of the clearest mediums where art, design, labor, care, and history all meet. Quilts carry personal stories, cultural memory, and technical mastery, often all at once. In the context of the Semiquincentennial, quilts offer a way to reflect on 250 years of lived experience in America through everyday acts of making that are often overlooked but are historically enduring. Quilting also moves very easily between contexts. Quilts and textiles are housed in museum collections and archives, but they're also our carriers of comfort and connection in community spaces, churches, and homes. The quilts presented during Handwork 2026 include a large range, from the historical, like this 1940s quilt on the left, made of repurposed feed sacks and presented in the exhibition Restitched Feed Sacks in the Mid-20th Century Quilts at the Mingei International Museum in San Diego, to quilts of valor, which are awarded to service members and veterans touched by war, as in this image provided by the Quilts of Valor Foundation in Iowa. To the contemporary, like Lisa Alvarado's Talismans for a Theater of Resilience at the Fabric Workshop and Museum in Philadelphia. And to the political, like this NAACP quilt by Carrie Harlan, co-presented by Women of Color Quilters Network and Fitton Center for Creative Arts in their exhibition, The Soul of Black Folks, 250 Years of Creativity, Leadership, and Innovation. And speaking of the Women of Color Quilters Network, I also wanted to just quickly pause on founder Dr. Carolyn Mazlumi, who embodies many of the values Handwork 2026 many of the values around which Handwork 2026 is centered. She is a Handwork 2026 advisor and was featured in season 16 of Craft in America. Dr. Mazlumi's work bridges scholarship, artistic excellence, and community building. Speaking of community building, in addition to exhibitions, Handwork 2026 participants are offering a wealth of events dedicated to the fiber arts. spanning practical hands-on workshops to talks to markets. For example, on the top left, the Seed Lab at the Anchorage Museum in Alaska is hosting its Slow Craft Week 2026 later this month. On the top right, the American Swedish Institute in Minneapolis is hosting a natural dyeing with birch bark workshop in March. The image on the bottom left highlights the American Craft Council's National Craft Open Studios Weekend for Handwork 2026, which will take place July 18th and 19th. The American Craft Council is a national partner of Handwork. And on the bottom right, this event, Creating Your Fiber Arts Vision Board by Fiber Arts on 4th in Los Ranchos, New Mexico, took place earlier this month. These exhibitions and events are just a snapshot of the hundreds of programs our participants are hosting as part of Handwork 2026. And this is only the fiber arts. In addition to all of this regional activity, there are also a few anchor moments, projects that help focus national attention. Handwork 2026 will culminate with a core exhibition at the Renwick Gallery, the Smithsonian's Craft Museum, this November. The exhibition is titled Handwork, Contemporary Craft at the Renwick Gallery and will feature more than 100 works from the museum's permanent collection, including 10 new acquisitions made possible through Handwork 2026, including this gorgeous tutu by Vicky Essig, made of natural silk. One of the most visible contributions to Handwork is Craft in America's Peabody Award-winning documentary series on PBS that broadcasts to millions of viewers each year. These 4 one-hour episodes explore the country's cardinal directions. East and West are currently streaming on PBS, YouTube, and on the Craft in America website. North and South will follow this December. Craft in America's production team selected filming locations across the country to represent the breadth and diversity that defines American craft. This map gives a quick snapshot of some of the locations some of the locations and crafts featured in these exciting new episodes. This year's episodes feature craft masters like contemporary quilt artist Bisa Butler, weaver Helena Hernmark, potter and poet Roberto Lugo, and book artist Colette Fu. They also highlight unique cultural assets like the Puakalani Quilt Group, Princeton Public Library, and the Paul Revere House, to name a few. We're also proud to share Handwork 2026's educational efforts. Thanks to a generous grant from the Wingate Foundation, Handwork 2026 will support 10 artist residencies at colleges and universities across the country. You can see the list of universities up here on the slide. Professional craft artists will introduce university students to practices that aren't commonly emphasized in higher arts education. And in turn, students will share their expertise in contemporary materials, techniques, and technology, fostering a mutual exchange. This program will encourage both students and residents to develop a deeper understanding of craft's significance in American history, society, and identity while honing their technical craft skills. Additionally, for teachers and younger students, interdisciplinary learning resources for grades K through 12 will be released on Craft in America's websites and on PBS Learning Media as the documentary series premieres. These educational guides will use the episodes as an entry point to take students on a journey through history, cultural traditions, and the impact of craft in the United States. Moving on to digital components of Handwork 2026, we also have several short-form video initiatives in development that will expand the ways audiences can engage with craft. All of these efforts will be amplified through a robust social media campaign. We encourage you to follow us if you're on social media. Our handle's on the current slide. We recently launched a campaign called Craft 250. In collaboration with organizations participating in Handwork 2026, it will include 250 craft-related posts, one for each working day of the year. Another key component of Handwork 2026 is a publication that will be released later this year. Produced by a subsidiary of Zaiden, the Handwork 2026 book will explore the craft continuum of American culture. It was edited by Craft in America Center Director Emily Zaiden, who's here with us today for a special presentation for you about the fiber that made America. We can take a quick pause for questions before I turn it over to Emily, or perhaps Emily wants to jump right in. I don't think I can see the questions, but that's the end of my portion.
We don't have any questions yet, Jen, so I think let's go in to Emily, and to our audience, please do put your questions in that Q&A box. Thank you so much, Jen.
Hi, everyone. Just going to get started. Let me try that again. Just a moment. There we go. Okay. Let me just back up a slide. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. I'm so pleased to be here today. It's a pleasure to speak to all of you from across the country and beyond. Please forgive for those of you, our Canadian neighbors and others in other parts of the Americas, the focus on the US for what I'm going to be talking about today. So the book that we're going to be publishing later this year is called Handwork, Handmade Objects That Made America. It is a look at the ways that handwork has built who we are, our culture. It's the foundation for everything we do. There was no other way originally, certainly, for our country to exist other than through handwork. And it has continued to infuse everything we do from this point on. The book really is really focused on the idea of how craft is this ongoing continuum that has centuries of history prior to our 250th, our Declaration of Independence, going to all kinds of native cultures that had pre-existing incredible rich traditions and onward to the present. It really came about because we felt there's a need to create a connect. There's a disconnect between contemporary craft in a lot of ways and early decorative arts and ethnographic studies. And we wanted to fuse all of this together as a celebration of our American culture in this moment of this year. The book takes a material culture approach to our history. It's a collection of essays written by multiple contributors from across the fields and disciplines. So we have cultural anthropologists, historians, to artists who've all contributed short essays that form the book. For today, I'm going to be talking about both the book, but focusing on the fiber that's represented within the book. The book is a multimedia exploration of craft in our history, certainly. I've peppered in a few examples of objects that are non-fiber based or that have crossover, but again, we'll be focusing strictly on the objects that are more in line with all of what you all do, and ending with a focus on quilts specifically. So the book is a comprehensive look. It shows how historic craft informs the present, how craft has always defined American life, and also how contemporary studio craft is very much a part of this trajectory. Might not be linear. That's to be debated. And all of this is presented through a selection of objects that are very closely examined through detailed looking and analysis. And by individual examples, these come together to form this very unique portrait of our culture. So all of this, I think, is a new approach that's much needed within our field of how to look at objects and find meaning in all of them in various new ways. And so I'm going to be talking both about the approach that we took in the book, but to a broader application that it, I think, has in many of our work. And just on the left here, and you can see in terms of the captions that I've provided for all of these images, but I've used images from both the book, and there are several images that are scattered in that are outside of the book. But this is a card table from the MFA Boston, the embroidered surface of that table, and on the right, an incredible Rebozo by Consuelo Jimenez Underwood. So clearly spanning our history. You all know so well that fiber is very much a container of history, whether it's applied in terms of vessel or in more two-dimensional formats. It always contains history. It's metaphorically something that we speak of as being infused with woven, and presenting history. And that's really, I think, the key starting point for where we come into this book. For starting out and how to approach contemporary objects and placing them in this larger history, there are two in particular books that I found really interesting for how to look at objects and kind of shake up how we've looked at them in a less hierarchical and compartmentalized way than we have in the past. One being Tangible Things, which was created by a small group of authors, including Laurel Thatcher Ulrich. And their key philosophy, ideology, is the idea of thinking with things and approaching the objects of the past as approaching objects as records of the past instead of strictly looking at written words and what we can find from that. The other book that I highly recommend as well is Ned Cook's Global Objects Toward a Connected Art History. And Ned talks about aesthetic imperialism. And as I continue today, this is an idea that I think is extremely relevant as we go forward. It touches on the idea that there's a dismissal of function that had happened with the advent of modernism in terms of the art world, and that created these hierarchies we know between fine art and craft, for instance, and all these rifts that exist. And so this dismissal of function, skill, material, and cultural value that he's encouraging as something that we should all override, certainly. And he even starts by referencing a quote by Henry Glassy, who also was critical to creating an approach to material culture early on. And that is, no matter how important easel painting is in the late West, it's uncommon in world history. It would be more just, truer to reality to begin with textiles and ceramics, he says. But for today's purposes, we'll focus on the textile side. Oops. I want to begin just with a presentation basket that was created by a Chumash master weaver in the early 19th century, and pointing out the idea that and an approach to how we can look at American material culture, certainly, and specifically the fiber stories within it as synonymous with self-reliance and independence. Now, this artist, maker, weaver, was commissioned to create this basket by the last governor, a Spanish governor of California, for a field marshal. And around the rim of this basket, you see she wove in the phrase, "I made it, neophyte Juana Basilia, desirous of contributing to the attentions of this governor and Sola and his illustrious field marshal, Don Jose de la Cruz." That marking of an object is something that we think is very significant. Her declaration of herself and instilling herself within this piece that was presented to as an honorable object to honor someone, for that matter, these are the kinds of ideas that are part of the fiber of the objects we're talking about, and speak to how craft is this act of self-reliance and independence, always has been and always will be. So again, looking at these objects as in the book across time and also across place, we're looking at the whole span of the U.S. and what we can find by doing so, the comparisons that emerge by looking at different moments and different places and different cultural perspectives and how they all come together. I would also like to mention just the aspect of empowerment that's fundamental in terms of how we approach a lot of the American fiber history and how it provided empowerment to women, certainly, and people of all kinds, and how creating fiber was political, economic, and expressive freedom, independence, and self-assertion in so many ways. These ideas are, of course, very much still alive and interwoven with the work that probably many of you are doing today and all the humanistic associations we have for fiber objects. So on the right, we have, of course, a piece by the renowned basket weaver Mary Jackson. This is probably her masterpiece, if you will. It's her largest work, Never Again, it's called, and it is 42 inches wide. In terms of the book, and which also reflects this new way of looking at the trajectory of American craft, we've organized it based on object type. And so I'm throwing in, as you see, a couple examples of cabinets. The book is divided up by these kinds of objects, and within each object type, there is a presentation of individual examples of those over the course of time. These stood out to me because of the surface design aspects, because of the mimicking in ways of loosely of quilts in terms of gridded decoration and the assemblage of and form of decoration in terms of these surface designs. This being on the left, a pie safe made in Tennessee with these tin decorations on its front, and then the shrunk on the right being an earlier piece, but very much a cultural expression from Pennsylvania German maker. More object types, just to allude to what we can explore and understand by looking at different objects that have similarities but are so different in terms of time, in terms of materials, in terms of construction, yet have so much also to share between them. I think throughout the book, there's this, and in, again, ways that we can look at American fiber history and craft history, this issue of utility somehow competing with expression, and the utilitarian somehow being less expressive than a purely conceptual piece. And I think expression has always been a part of craft, even when forms were more overt or more recognizable. This being the Sons of Liberty Bowl by Paul Revere. I don't think many would ever have expected this to be filled with any sort of edible contents or anything of that sort. This was really a message just as much as any other art form would be. And that message is very overtly engraved into its surface. And certainly an icon of American history as a craft achievement that's linked to this revolutionary moment. Craft always has revolutionary moments. And on the right, we're looking at a very recent bowl by California glass artist Catherine Gray that's really about meditation on the cavity and the bowl as a vessel and all the ideas that can be contained within the bowl. So these are interpretations of a bowl, but for very expressive purposes. And certainly quilts are the perfect metaphor for how we can understand the formation of our nation, our culture. You are all well familiar with the various metaphors that fiber provides linguistically to us and philosophically as a culture. So this piece, I think, shows that very well. This coming together of forces, the pieces that combine to form a whole. This is a quilt in the collection of the Huntington here in Pasadena. I wanted to introduce a couple of objects that I think cross over in certain ways in terms of approach, formal construction elements structurally, and maybe conceptually in certain ways with quilts, but that are not straightforward quilts today. And so on the right, we're looking at a parka that that would have been made in Alaska in the early 20th century, made from sewn, dried, bearded seal intestines and decorated with rows of auklet crest tufts, cormorant feathers, and seal fur. And I think there's a very strong approach to horizontal banding and this design element of gridding and the regularity, let alone the sewing together of these elements, struck me as relating to quilting in certain ways. And on the left, we have a pair of boots made by Lisa Sorrell, and these are entitled Out Among the Stars. And she creates this landscape scene on the boot. And Lisa actually was featured in one of Craft in America's earlier episodes called Family. She's an incredible boot maker. And she also is piecing together leather and, of course, a very different technique, but that has a lot of parallels, I think. Quilts provide warmth, they envelop, they cushion, and these objects similarly share elements of that. Different in terms of construction, materials, and ultimate design, but there's a relationship. The prototype Nike on the right, which may be an unexpected object for us to think about in terms of the craft history in the US, was actually very much an example of experimental problem solving through craft by Bill Bowerman, who developed this prototype waffle shoe for Nike in the early 70s. It's ultimately pieced together in terms of and with applique of that iconic Nike swoosh, and it's intended to envelop and cushion the foot, potentially warm the foot as well. There's very much a pattern and grid to the way that the sole is constructed. And then I also wanted to include this Kiowa cradle board, which of course is the ultimate enveloper of a young person, and the treatment of patterning in terms of layout and perspective and all of those elements, I think, also has this unusual connection with quilts if we take a step back. Delving specifically into American quilts, there are three concepts that help to approach what we see happen over time in terms of content, in terms of the perspective and the use of quilting and the expression. I'm going to start with identity. This is always, and also of these three themes, there's a lot of overlap and application to multiple quilts that fit into each of these three themes. Identity, crisis, and beauty, I think, are ways that we can organize how we look at our creative output in this realm. I'm starting with the fundamental and iconic Lone Star quilt. In this case, two examples also from the Huntington, here again in Los Angeles, similar point in time. One idea that comes through more and more is with a way to approach all of these objects that span 250 plus years is really looking at the moments in which they're born. And of course, these are not precisely dated, but we can still think about what was happening at that point in time and look at these as records of those moments. So we're looking at 1840 to 1850. It's the early Republic. Western expansion is ramping up. We have the women's movement in action, temperance, abolition, were years leading into what will become a civil war. The nation is formed. There's a framework, which I think is really strongly represented and metaphorically in each of these examples. And it's this pulling together of all of these different forces, these individual pieces that created what existed at that point in time, and the continued process of statehood that's ongoing through this point in time, and that's feeding into this kind of centralized establishment of a government. Also the connectivity and the ways that both of these, I think, echo metaphorically where our country was in these moments of disconnect and connectivity, and how things could come together to form the nation and also have a lot of tug and pull. You feel this tension certainly in the quilt on the right of forces being pushed in many directions. A little bit later, we move to an Amish center diamond quilt, which is an object that's in the collection at the International Quilt Museum. This piece, which is a little bit later than what we're talking about, is created at a time most likely when World War I is very much present in American minds. We're heading into Prohibition era potentially, and subsequently a depression with signs of that coming. So somewhere in this loose phase of time. And what can we read into this quilt that's indicative of all of that? Well, for one, we know that Amish quilts endured through the Depression, even though, and these large swaths of fabric were elements that were part of that cultural quilting tradition that did not exist necessarily in others. And so that was an anomaly, while other quilters were using small scraps and pieces to make their work. It shows this very independent vision for quilt design, this very, what we have after the fact possibly labeled as modernist take, these color blocks that have much less of an overt ornateness to them. However, if you look at the quilting itself, it has that complexity. So it's this much more nuanced take. it's a very different it's a very different outlook, and certainly embodies different cultural perspective and a different moment in time. This quilt, which I should mention also is part of our current Craft in America's most recent West episode, features the artist who created this piece. Her name is Pat Gorlington, and the design for this piece actually dates to 1935. This is a piece that was recently acquired by the Renwick. And so because it's a 1935 design, it has a very Art Deco perspective to it stylistically, in terms of the design approach. Hawaiian quilting tradition, however, really goes to the missionary history of Hawaii and the early 19th century, 1820s onward, when quilting was brought to the islands. And Hawaiians took this on and made it their own tradition. They depicted all kinds of plants native to the islands. Their deep connections with nature are something that's articulated throughout their quilts. And you certainly see that in this example. Shifting into another piece that really captures this idea of identity, but is woven rather than quilted, is this Makaloa mat that was made by a master weaver in the late 19th century for the king. And this was created as a plea, and as this, the letters that you're seeing form a letter to this king. This is in some ways akin to the Sons of Liberty Bowl by Revere, in that this is a protest piece. This is 2 millimeter pieces of sedge that are woven together. It took the maker, who was probably about 80 years old when she made the piece. It took about 11 months estimated, and that dedication, that act of independently and self-sufficiently articulating one's message through craft, I think is extremely powerful. And this was an appeal to the king over an imposed tax, so a tax on animals, and so very much like the Revere Bowl in that way, but different moment in time and different place. This quilt is a crazy quilt, roughly attributed to about 1900. Thinking about it in that context, we're looking at the Spanish-American War, the Philippine-American War around this time, possibly close to World War I for that matter. This rapid moment of immigration challenges in the U.S., the ramping up of industrialization in significant ways happening at this point in time. And you see this chaos in this piece. Very exceptional quilt. And this allusion to the Lone Star being this very loose, shadowy, amorphous subject at the center of this, which has a coffin at the center. Very different message here. This point in time, of course, is this overburdening. We're talking about this being early arts and crafts era, when there's this tension between the proliferation of industrially made goods and the artistically made, thoughtfully made, handmade, and the concept of conspicuous consumption is being planted, end of Victorian era. it's a very different moment, and all of that can be read so clearly through the piece and all of its detail. And very much related to the mother of quilting, Harriet Powers, pictorial quilt here in the MFA's collection, a well-known masterpiece, masterwork. This piece telling so many stories simultaneously, this melding of stories that is just explored throughout each of these panels, everything from religion to possibly weather and climate events that are happening in this moment of time, this being a turn of a century, a very pivotal moment, and how that's perceived by somebody who was born in Georgia and into slavery, and saw shifting over time of transformation of our society and our social order. Many of these themes are what Carolyn Mazlumi, as Jen mentioned, explores also in her work, that often deals with topics of race and African American experience. And Carolyn, in this piece, Sacred Union, is paying a tribute to the African American family unit and the diaspora of African Americans. And so this, 100 years later, very different moment in time, very many parallels between the two pieces, certainly, even though time has moved forward, so to speak. Carolyn's work generally is in black and white, although not exclusively, and there's this realness and truth to it that I think comes back to those first ideas that I was presenting, that from Henry Glassy, for instance, about how objects have this truth to them, and that presentation of this imagery and all the ideas that are behind this piece of her work being presented in black and white like text, I think reinforces them very much. So all throughout the course of our fiber history, fiber has been essential to the economy, no doubt, and the economy in many ways maybe has driven everything we are and do. This is a 1937 image, a rug that was created, which I will share in a moment, but this is Depression years and the need to respark economies through craft, and the ways that places like this trading post reemerged or emerged to drive that, to restart cultural tourism and use craft really ultimately to find ways to improve and succeed and continue onward. This is the rug that they were holding in the image, which was recently reinstalled at this museum in Winslow, Arizona, the Elephant Mayan Museum. And this was created over these years by Julia Joe and Lily, and they and their family dedicated their lives because they were commissioned by Havel of the Trading Post to create this piece as a draw to bring people out to visit this region. They raised their own churro sheep, carded wool, spun wool, and it's a remarkable piece that now we can all see in a better incarnation.
Emily, we are running up towards our time. I know you just have a few slides left to show us, and then
Yeah,
we'll take a question or two.
perfect. Perfect timing. My last image is a Gee's Bend quilt by Mary Lee Bendolph, and getting into the concept of beauty as a perfect closing point. Identity, crisis, and beauty, these are concepts that overflow and infuse everything that we look at in American craft history. And I think this piece embodies that strive for achieving beauty. And I think we can close there. Just stop sharing. I just want to lastly just mention that the book will be available in June. There is a link currently on Amazon for pre-order, but it's a little bit still in development in terms of the publisher and Monticelli. But stay tuned for more as we finish that up.
I'll just say to our audience, if you go to handwork2026.org, scroll down to the bottom right of your page and you can sign up for their newsletter. So I'm sure if you're on that newsletter, you'll find out when the book is available. You can also go on there and filter by state to see which craft organizations are nearby you if you're in the US. So that is a great resource, and thank you so much to everyone at Craft in America and Handwork for putting this together. Um, I want to start with a question from Jean. She's asking about technology versus handwork, working, hand
Yeah,
stitching in this case. And especially as you're looking at objects throughout the span of US history, how do you view technology's role in craft? What do you see happening and how do you think about it?
great question. In terms of this book, and I think in terms of new models for how we approach craft on the whole and beyond stitching and quilting, even, I think it's time that we shift towards new definitions of what craft is. I think the engagement, obviously, with technique and skill is essential, but it's really hard to draw the lines of which machines we're qualifying and which don't. We certainly, the aspects of the hand are essential, fundamental. Understanding of material and process, essential and fundamental. And I think that's more the issue. And we run into this as a question, I think, across the board with the use of machinery in every medium. And so I think it's a bigger definition of what craft is that can't possibly be so limited, especially in this day and age, strictly to hand. And that it's also almost less hierarchical to only privilege pure hand, is so limiting and exclusive. So I think it's a very nuanced and complicated subject.
And this sort of relates to that. They would like to know about the hammers behind you in your Zoom
Oh,
background here.
yes, thanks. I jumped right in without talking about our currently at the Craft America Center. We have a tools exhibition, which is up through the end of February. Please come if you are in California. I see many of you are. Or check it out on craftinamerica.org. Our virtual exhibitions are all up there. I also, yes, wanted to mention video in terms of Jen and I both mentioned several episodes from the series and the Craft in America PBS series, that is, and our quilts episode, for instance. All of those are streamable and viewable on our website and also our PBS and YouTube channels for that matter.
And let's see, we have one more question here. It says, what are the resources available for school-age students, elementary through high school? I don't know, Jen, if you could speak a little bit to that.
Sure. So every year there are education guides that are created with teachers in mind. They're designed for students who are K through 12. Those are also available on the Craft in America website. For handwork, there are some special ones that also connect to the episodes. Instead of one per episode, there will be two. I do believe there is an education guide that is tied to Bisa Butler's segment, so it's very quilt specific, but there are others that are fiber related as well.
Great, thank you. And I just want to end with one more question for the two of you. As you've been working, I know this has been a long project in the making. What's maybe something that has surprised you about this process, something new you've been introduced to, or just something that's coming up in 2026 that you're really excited about?
That's a great question. Can I have a minute?
Yeah. I'll just say
Um,
for me, I love that I'm looking on the Pennsylvania page of the Handwork website and I'm learning about organizations that are near me in Philadelphia that I was not previously familiar with. So that's just been really exciting.
That is so great to hear. We've spent a lot of time on the website and just trying to connect everyone. I think actually something that caught me by surprise was in gathering or trying to bring everybody together around handwork. We organized, and as you know very well, Lucy, these monthly participant calls, and it's been so wonderful to just see everybody who doesn't know each other all come together around craft. And like even again in local communities, organizations didn't know about each other. So just helping people connect in that way just makes this feel so meaningful and has been really exciting to witness.
and I would just add that I think craft has the possibility of providing this uplifting and hopeful and constructive message for our country in this day and age. And even though it's complicated and messy and has all of the dilemmas wrapped up within it, it's what makes it really beautiful. And I think this year of reflecting on this history hopefully will be really well infused with aspects of what you all are involved with creating.
I think that is a fantastic place to end things on. Thank you both so much. This has been so wonderful.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thanks so much.
And to our audience, thank you as always for watching. It is such a delight to spend my Wednesdays with you all. We will be back again next week, same time, same place, with Cut from the Same Cloth, Textile and Technology, that's presented by the Surface Design Association. If you enjoyed Textile Talks, we would love it if you would tell a friend about us, post about us on social media, and again, please consider supporting our work financially with a donation at SAQA.com/TT support. One more reminder that viewers of Textile Talks get $20 off the first year of a new SAQA membership with code TALKS. That's TALKS. If you love art quilts, then we would love to have you join us. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Take care.